Welcome to the distinguished lecture series in water. My name is Jinhua Jiao. I'm an economics professor, as well as the director of Environmental Science and Policy program. The distinguished lecture series is part of the Global Water Initiative that is going on at MSU. And is supported by Well Research Center for Water Sciences and ESPP. And today we are very happy to have Ronnie from University of Nebraska-Lincoln. This also happens when the football team. Being a Spartan, I would never acknowledge how strong UNL football team. Is it corn? So a friend of mine is a big fan, is a graduate, and we always argue about who is better, but okay. So however, I do agree that the Water for Food Institute at UNL is extremely well organized. In a very short period of time, it has positioned itself very prominently throughout the country and as well as the world. So that's really part of the major thing that Ronnie will be talking about. And in the process, I hope that we can learn a tremendous amount of really lessons and experiences from them in terms of organizing our water initiative. So some background about Ronnie. Ronnie is the Vice President of the University of Nebraska, as well as the Vice Chancellor for Institute of Ag and Natural Resources at University of Nebraska. It's a system-wide institute. Previously, he was the Global Technical Services Senior Director at Pfizer Animal Health. And from 2003 to 2008, he was the National Programs Leader in food animal production at USDA's Ag Research Service. I mean, you can really see the long track of careers. Before that, he was the Vice President of Cattle Operations at Futures Beef Operations. And before that, so from 94 to 2000, he was a Professor of Animal Science at Colorado State University. He is also currently the president of American Society of Animal Science. So again, today he'll be really talking about water, food issues, and also a very prominent example about how to bring people together and actually do something. With that, I'll hand this over to you. Thank
you. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope I'll say that whichever way it ends up tomorrow night. But it is a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation to come and to be part of this lecture series with you. You probably can tell from the basic background of that vita that you just had read to you that I'm not a water person. I haven't come up in the water world, so to speak, but I've become very immersed in it very quickly in the last 3 years as we have gone into this development of a Water for Food Institute at the University of Nebraska. So what I'm going to try to do today is I want to frame this for you first and give you a very strong understanding of the why we felt this was so important for the University of Nebraska system. In our case, we're a 4-campus system. We have a med center in Omaha, an urban campus in Omaha, the comprehensive R1 campus in Lincoln, that's your counterpart here at Michigan State, and then a primarily undergraduate institution in the central part of the state in Kearney. And this has become, water has become our #1 priority as a university system. So we've established that early on. So I want to frame that for you first, frame it both within the land-grant mission as well as in the why we have come to this conclusion and wanted to invest these kind of resources around water, and then tell you kind of how we're doing it. I sense from the discussion earlier today with several groups, I know you're engaged in this discussion of a global water initiative here at MSU and are into that process of how you'll do that. So I hope what I can share there will be some learnings in it for you. We're not perfect. We know we're not doing it perfectly, but we have been quite pleased with the way it's developed, and particularly how rapidly it's developed since we launched it just a couple of years ago. You all know this first background. We're a land-grant university. You're the land-grant university. You started this process. So you understand the mission that we have very well, and that I like to say that the land-grant mission 150 years ago is probably more relevant even than it was in 1862. And some of the issues that we are facing globally, not only domestically here in the US, but now globally, make our mission that much more critically important. This is the third place I've been this week. I was at UC Davis Monday and Tuesday. I was in Kansas City yesterday with a group of ag industry leaders talking about this same topic: food, energy, water, the overlap between the three, and how we have to elevate this into the national consciousness and the international consciousness moving forward as part of the land-grant mission. So I hope you'll get that picture here at the beginning. We're 150 years old, you know that. We just celebrated the 150th anniversary of the Morrill Act at the end of September. We had a tremendously interesting discussion at the end of that week with the four gentlemen you see in the middle, four former U.S. Secretaries of Agriculture, who had a conversation with us just about the future, and not only of the land-grant university, but what's going to really have to change in the way we think about food and energy and water moving forward, spanning the Reagan years all the way up to the current days. So it was a tremendously compelling and interesting discussion. The land-grant mission, I've already said, is critical. We know we have been very, very successful in that 150 years in meeting the initial needs, which was increase more and more and more, produce more. But now we're in this era where, given that we have done that, these are data from the Economic Research Service on ag outputs and inputs. You've probably seen that kind of data before. A tremendous success story up here in terms of productivity over about a 60-year period, with maintaining the level of inputs or maybe slightly declining in recent years. But this is the future. That line has to come down. That input line really has to come down for us to be sustainable in the global environment that we exist in now. So the 21st century stuff that we're looking out ahead of us, heavily centered on these three topics, we believe, with water at the lead, requires us to really think differently about what we've done as compared to in the past to address these issues sustainably moving forward. It is really heartening for me to see these dialogues. I got a little tired on planes this week, but it is really heartening to see who's having these discussions now. The discussion at UC Davis on Monday that I mentioned was with the Council on Competitiveness, which is a trade organization, trade-related organization out of Washington, wanting to elevate this into the consciousness at the federal level in the next administration, whoever that may be next week, after the election, or whenever we know what the outcome of the election is, so that whoever that may be that can elevate this into a different level of consciousness than we thought about. The group yesterday I was with was a group of ag industry organizations. So all of the big ag and some of the smaller ag organizations talking about the same issue. And what kept coming up in that discussion was not what you think. It wasn't the trade stuff and the getting bigger and larger. It was, what are we going to do about water? What's that going to mean for us 25, 50, 75 years from now? So a very different set of issues when you consider what's out ahead of us in meeting those production demands and in meeting food demands for a growing population globally. 2.5 billion more people expected by 2045, 2050 on the planet, 7 billion today. You know those numbers from a lot of play that they're getting publicly in the world today. And we know that in that population growth, we have some real issues of mismatch of resources. That population growth is largely going to occur by all the models that we see in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia, as this graphic shows pretty vividly. 49 and 41% respectively. We also know that we got to double food production with fewer resources in order to meet those needs, right? Now, these are projections out of Elanco they've said that for the last several years, that we're going to have to double food production. Most of that is going to have to come from technology adoption, smart technology adoption, smart technology deployment, in order to be able to meet those targets and begin to even think about being sustainable. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on in Nebraska, because it is unprecedented what is happening for us anywhere in the history of the state just in the last 5 years. So there's a real case study here that I think that we're going to be learning from for a long time in the way that things are changing in that particular region of the state. My wife's a native Nebraskan. I'm not, but she's a native Nebraskan. Her family has been